right now to restart your life. TheRewindSports60.com. What are you waiting for? Hope to see you soon. The Rewind Sports 60.
The Rewind
Sports 60. From the city of big shoulders, the jewel of the Midwest, comes a sports show that's one of a kind. From iconic players to iconic stadiums to iconic teams, this is my kind of town. Chicago! And the Rewind Sports 60 is my kind of show. From Air Jordan to Sweetness to Papa Bear Hallis, this city works hard, but plays even harder. Danny Carlino and Jerry Riles bring you the Rewind Sports 60. Live. The Rewind Sports 60 starts now.
This keeping in the game for you?
That's basically. Ultimately, it's to bring awareness and make people, realize what's really going on in this country. There are a lot of things that are going on that are unjust. People aren't being held accountable for, and that's something that needs to change. That's something that, this country stands for: freedom, liberty, justice for all, and it's not happening for all right now.
Is this something that's evolved as a philosophy in your mind, and how has this kind of progressed that you make a stand like this?
It's something that I've seen, I've felt, wasn't quite sure how to deal with originally, and it is something that's evolved. It's something, as I've gained more knowledge about, what's going on in this country in the past, what's going on currently. These aren't new situations. This isn't new ground. It's things that have gone on in this country for years and years and have never been addressed, and they need to be.
Colin,
Will you continue, Colin, to sit? Will you continue to sit?
Yes, I'll continue to sit. I'm going to continue to stand with the people that are being oppressed. To me, this is something that has to change, and when there's significant change, and I feel like that flag represents what it's supposed to represent, and this country is representing people the way that it's supposed to, I'll stand.
Specifically, what would you like to say?
There's a lot of things that need to change. One specifically is police brutality. There's people being murdered unjustly and not being held accountable. Cops are getting paid leave for killing people. That's not right. That's not right by anyone's standards.
Colin, so many people see the flag as kind of a symbol of the military. How do you view it, and what do you say to those people?
I have great respect for men and women that have fought for this country. I have family, I have friends that have gone and fought for this country. And they fight for freedom. They fight for the people. They fight for liberty and justice for everyone. And that's not happening. People are dying in vain because this country isn't holding their end of the bargain up as far as, giving freedom and justice and liberty to everybody. It's something that's not happening. And I've seen videos, I've seen circumstances where men and women that have been in the military have come back and been treated unjustly by the country they fought for, and have been murdered by the country they fought for on our land. That's not right. There have been situations where I feel like I've been ill-treated, yes, but this stand wasn't for me. This stand wasn't because I feel like I'm being put down in any kind of way, this is because I'm seeing things happen to people that don't have a voice, people that don't have a platform to talk and have their voices heard and affect change. So I'm in a position where I can do that, and I'm going to do that for people that can't.
Is this the first year that you haven't stood up? Did you do it other years, or is this the first time?
This year's the first year that I've done this.
And you did all the preseason games so far?
Yes.
This is the first time it was noted?
Yes.
And what went on in the meeting today?
How did your teammates respond when you explained yourself today, and what was the support like for you?
The support I've got from my teammates has been great. You know, I think a lot of my teammates come from areas where this might be a situation. Their families might be put in this situation. It's something that I've had a lot of people come up to me and say, you know, I really respect you for what you're doing and what you're standing for. So to me, that's something that I know what I'm doing, what's right, and I know other people see what I'm doing is right. It's something that we have to come together, we have to unite, we have to unify and make a change. I don't understand how it's the wrong way. To me, this is a freedom that we're allowed in this country. And going back to the military thing, it's a freedom that men and women that have fought for this country have given me this opportunity by the contributions they have made. So I don't see it as going about it the wrong way. This is something that has to be said. It has to be brought to the forefront of everyone's attention. And when that's done, I think people can realize what the situation is and then really affect change.
You've done it every preseason game. Are you almost relieved that it took this game and the questioning that followed to let you?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Rewind Sports 60. You have Colin Kaepernick's words in 2016. So timely. And here we are in 2020. Really, the whole entire world knows exactly what he's talking about now, when we all know the ramifications of what he said and all of the fallout from it. Such poignant words, and just how incredibly applicable they are today is just really ringing true for not only African Americans, but everybody in the country. So we definitely want you guys to join in on the conversation with everything that's going on, the protesting, the rioting, just the civil unrest that happened, all as a result of the police brutality that Colin Kaepernick was talking about. So give us a call, 773-763-9278, where you also can check us on Facebook. We're streaming live, the Rewind Sports 60, and I want to get to my distinguished panel to kind of see what you guys think about and what your sentiments are. I'll start with you, Dan, the marvelous one, Dan Marver. What do you think of Colin Kaepernick's words then versus now?
Well, obviously at the time, there was a lot of pushback, on it. And now, as you'll hear from Goodell, he's kind of sorry that they said don't do it then, because now it's going to be okay to do it, obviously, going forward, if they want to kneel or whatever they want to do, as long as it's peaceful, obviously. And, I mean, the protesting is great, except I'm a little concerned during the coronavirus situation that people are congregating. That's my only worry about the protests, honestly. So that's my take. I mean, his words are, prophetic in a way that that now it's going to be obviously routine to give some show of solidarity or protest if you're an athlete.
Absolutely. And Q, Quentin Demps, tenure NFL vet, I definitely want to hear what you think about when you hear those words.
I think, at first, I didn't know what he was doing. I couldn't say I was I didn't understand it at first, but now I think it's full circle. It makes so much sense now that, like you say, he's kind of like a prophet. It's kind of like, prophetic that what's going on now, he was fighting against it back, 4 years ago. So just got to give my hats off to him for real, for taking a chance and, being brave on the front line.
What did you think in terms of protesting? Were you in the league then? Were you down for taking a knee, or how did you feel about it?
Yeah, I was tunnel vision. I was kind of one of the guys who, every year I got to fight for my job, so I couldn't really, But I had my, and again, I didn't like being known for doing stuff like that. So I had my little things I did on the side to help out, but when it came to work, it was work for me. You know, it wasn't about being political or anything like that. It was work for me. So.
And what was the locker room like? Was it like, what was the sentiment behind for Colin Kaepernick?
It's kind of like mixed signals, because some guys are like fighting for their job and they can't. Like you said, like some guys are like paranoid to do that, like to stand up for that kind of stuff, because you can get blackballed like he did. So it's kind of mixed. You know what I'm saying? So you know, I think now it's going to be more united now, though. You know, at this time. So
definitely. And Jerry Riles. Definitely want to hear your input and what you think. Are you
sure?
I do. Yes.
Wow. You know, I supported Colin Kaepernick way back in 2016 when he first took the knee, and many people don't realize it was a 4-game preseason. In the first game, he actually sat down. Okay, and then he had an opportunity to talk with some veterans who have fought, in the respective wars. And they said, hey, you're not disrespecting, the flag. You're not disrespecting us. But if you kneel, that will be a better representation. Right. And so the second preseason game in 2016, he knelt down. It was the third game that a reporter, I believe, who was up in the skybox that noticed, and I think the camera zoomed in on him. And then that's when it all started. But initially, when he first took this approach, he was sitting down on the bench. He got the approval of some veterans, and they said, we don't have a problem with what you're doing. Just kneel down to respect. And he did that. And as we know, the rest is history. But, for this brother at the age, he put a lot on the line. He put everything on the line. And I can't say that I would have done that. Yeah. There are a lot of people. And Q said, hey, it was work for me, and I had to go to work and handle business. And I know there were a lot of players in the National Football League back during that time that pretty much felt the same way. Hey, man, you got to do. And
that's how I feel at work. It's like, you don't want to kick up dust, especially if you like one of the only black people.
If you mess with management, you may not have a job.
Well, that's the thing,
100%.
Lauren. And see, that's the thing, Lauren. You repeat what you just said. If you're the only black person, repeat that again.
Yeah, if you're the only black person, you can't afford to just run out and be like, hey, it's like, that's real. That's why he was one of the only ones that did it.
And that's the whole point regarding this movement and regarding the protesting that's going on, not only in our city and around the country, but around the world, is that, Lauren, that's exactly the reason, systemic racism. Because a white person can feel free at work to call his boss out.
Hey, was Colin the starter at the time he did that? Was he starting at that time?
He'd been in the Super Bowl already.
Yeah.
Was he starting that year, though?
Well, I mean, it was a preseason. Yeah. No, he wasn't.
He wasn't. Who was starting? Who
was it, Devin? Blaine Gabbert, yeah.
Wow.
Right. But it was a preseason game, too. So
but still. Okay, so, I'm just trying to recollect.
Yeah, Okay. But for him to take that approach, that was huge. And of course, the backlash that he endured for taking that stance, and not only for his position, but the fact that he was being that spokesperson or that personality or that brand for those who couldn't speak up for themselves. And that's what he said. I'm using this platform to speak up for those who can't fight for themselves.
I couldn't understand why he did it, and that's a question that I just wanted to ask him. He's mixed. He was raised by white people. It's not like he has kids. I mean, obviously, he's a black man, so he's been experiencing, social injustice. But I just couldn't understand, why he snapped out like that. Like, was it a pivotal event or a moment, or he just couldn't take? And we haven't, it's so interesting that you played that entire clip, because he talked a lot. We haven't heard that man talk. We haven't heard him talking in so long.
Exactly.
We haven't heard him talk since. And he's never really explained. He's accepted awards and he's made statements. Right. But he's never sat down with any kind of interviewers and really expressed his point and what led him to this pivotal moment. And I'm just so curious as to what change of consciousness that he had, that he was so propelled to do what he's done and just continue to stay the course, because he could have got up at a certain point. He was like, no, I'm riding this thing all the way out. And I'm so curious as to Colin, why did you do it? Colin, let us know.
Well, that's $1 million question.
Understanding. I mean, we know why, but for him, it's just really interesting.
But honestly, I'm actually glad that he has not come out, and he has never come out really and said anything because he's taken a lot of heat.
Yeah.
And all along the way, he said it, like you said, in 5 minutes, and that some of that stuff was edited out, but in 5 minutes, basically, he's like, hey, this is the reason I'm doing it. And he said he did his homework, he did his research, he's seen video, he's talked to people, so he was prepared to take that stance and address the media / address the world to express why he was doing what he's doing. And he said, hey, it's out there, it's right there for you. Only thing you have to do is just listen, look, and react. And we did that, but unfortunately we reacted in a negative sense, and we know what happened all along the way. And now there are even current players, Q, who sided with him. Malcolm Jenkins was one. Eric Reed was one. There were some players across the league that sided with him and say, hey, this brother is right. But now you've heard over the past week or two that there are some football players across the country, across the league, who say, hey, you know what? We are just as guilty because we didn't pay this guy any mind. Even Chicago Bear players that said, hey, Akeem Hicks came out and said, hey, I was wrong. He said, I was wrong. I should have listened to this brother because he was right. Your thoughts?
I feel the same way as Akeem. You know, I was kind of like, bro, what you doing, bro? You're doing too much, you know, at some point. Like, golly, bro, like, play ball, you know, focus on your team and all that kind of stuff. But like you said, like, I think it meant something to him. You know, it just meant something to him, man, to be that advocate, man, to be that one that's, you know, put his you know, screwing him on the table, man, and be like, I'm gonna take it for everybody. Like, I'm gonna show y'all what this stuff means something to me. So
and the good thing about him is the fact that he knew how to handle the media. Because he knew, Lauren, had he come out, say, another, you know, week later or a month later or 6 months or a year down the road and try to elaborate on his initial message, you know how it happens in the media, that it's going to be taken out of context, as they say. It's going to be twisted. It's going to be, you know, pointing the finger back at him, all sorts of things. And so I think it was right now, you look back in hindsight, strategically very well planned, because he put the statement out there, sat back, and now the entire world hears his message. Now, the entire world listens. That's progress.
Right.
But at least right now, the entire world hears the message of Colin Kaepernick. We witnessed it with the tragic situation that happened with George Floyd in Minneapolis. And it's up to us now as the people to try to do something different. Ladies and gentlemen, on our TR60 hotline, this gentleman has certainly made quite a difference and quite a contribution, not only to the world of sports here in the city of Chicago, but I think his work speaks volumes around the world. And he's definitely, I think he's one of the longest tenured sports writers and columnists here in the city of Chicago. 41 years of work for the Chicago Tribune as a sports writer and a columnist, and he's still active, teaching the young folks over at DePaul University. He even got a book out about Loyola University basketball. I'm pleased to call him a good friend of the program and a good friend of mine. He's on our TR60 hotline on the Rewind Sports 60. He's the legendary sports writer and columnist, Mr. Fred Mitchell. Fred, how are you?
I'm doing great, Jerry. It's good to talk to you this evening.
It's very good to talk to you, Fred, and I don't know if you had a chance to listen, but we played pretty much 5 minutes of Colin Kaepernick from back in 2016 after he took when he began the protest regarding taking the knee during the preseason game of that year, and spoke to the media about the injustices and the inequality going on in the urban cities, whether it's Chicago, Los Angeles, New York, Atlanta, Detroit, wherever the case may be. He wanted to be that voice and use his platform with the National Football League to express the oppressions that's going on in those particular communities. And of course, we know the rest is history. Lauren Cox is here with us, along with the marvelous one, Dan Marver. And of course, you know Quentin Demps, the 10-year veteran in the National Football League, played with the beloved Chicago Bears. He's in studio as well. But we're all wondering what your thoughts are regarding Colin Kaepernick, and why did he just pretty much make that statement and then just let it go, as opposed to coming out and kind of trying to explain himself throughout the course of the 4 years, in your opinion?
Yeah, well, First of all, I'm old enough to have experienced the 1960s and the tumultuous time that was in terms of racial inequities and protests and such. And I remember the treatment that Muhammad Ali received initially when he refused to be drafted into the military and to be subject to that, something he did not believe in. And it took years afterwards for people to look at him differently as a pioneer, as a hero, as someone who was willing to speak out about true convictions of right and wrong. And I compare that to what is happening now with Colin Kaepernick and how he was, many people, I should say, responded to his kneeling and did not listen to the message that he wanted to convey in the conversation that he wanted to get started about police brutality and inequities in our country. So I think we all would have liked for him to have expounded more on the topic after, during the kneeling and just really keep the conversation started. Instead, we heard a lot of other negative reaction to it, and people feeling that he was being disrespectful to the flag and the military, and people missed the entire point of the message that he was trying to deliver. But looking back now, we see, everyone sees that he was more than right then, and it's more than right now. That unfortunately, it took the George Floyd tragedy to bring the eyes of the nation, both black and white, on this topic. And obviously, there's several other similar incidents that people can see with their own eyes. And the big difference now than from the 60s is the fact that just about everyone has a cell phone camera and can record these incidents as they're taking place, both the audio and the visual, and people can see it. And it's not simply some aggrieved person trying to tell somebody, this happened to me or my friend or neighbor or another person, and have that story dismissed as he said, she said type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Now people can see, and sometimes in live action, what's going on in this world. And this hopefully is a tipping point that will change things. Obviously, we're in the sports world, and we would like to see things change there, and that's just a microcosm sometimes of what's happening nationwide in communities. And see that changes need to be made, and not just promises. Actions need to be made. Grievances need to be heard. People need to be held accountable. All of these things come into play at this time. And hopefully George Floyd's death and so many others will not be in vain, and we can see some true accomplishments beyond the sports world, and everyone can live better.
Fred, Lauren Cox here. So Roger Goodell did come out and he made a statement in terms of the NFL's stance on the Black Lives Matter protests. However, he didn't mention Colin Kaepernick's name, and people had a lot to say about that. I wanted to know what you thought the significance of him not saying Colin Kaepernick's name in that statement was.
It might have something to do with legal issues,
probably something to do with it.
Just where somebody would come back and say that, hey, I'm owed even more money. That could be part of it. And let's make no mistake that Roger Goodell works for the owners of the National Football League teams, and so many of these owners have perpetuated this old school methodology and thinking that players should not express their grievances or do anything to express concern about inequities in society. So I think Goodell is walking a tightrope, so to speak. And it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out once football returns, and whether there'll be substantial number of players kneeling, whether they avoid having the national anthem altogether. A lot of things. We want to watch it closely to see how players are treated by the owners and by the coaches and by the teammates. There could be conflict among teammates who have differing opinions about that sort of thing. So it's going to be there's going to be a lot of drama, shall we say, outside of just the action on the football field.
Fred, this is Dan Marver here in the studio. I was thinking at the time, I was wishing that Kaepernick would have been invited on some program to explain his views, like MSNBC or something. I never saw such a thing occur, and I really want a solution to this as well. I mean, one of the solutions will not be to defund the police, because then it's mass chaos. So, it's like I'm just frustrated because, there's no obvious single solution to this. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, it's going to be difficult, but I think we're kind of seeing it happen already in the fact that the more voices there are expressing this feeling, the better. It was easy for people who objected to Kaepernick to point the finger at him and say, he's a troublemaker, and let's blackball him from the NFL. We don't need that. But if you have a substantial percentage of athletes, both black and white, and Hispanic, throughout the NFL who have the same thought process, then it's more difficult for anybody any opponents of theirs to isolate that large number of players. And we know that there's 70% of the players are something like that are African American in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're going to educate that entire majority of players throughout the league, there's going to be some issues that they won't be able to handle.
No, you certainly.
And I love the way Drew Brees responded to Donald Trump's statement that he need not apologize for what he said about about kneeling, and Drew Brees was very specific in saying that this is not about the flag and never has been about the flag and not about the military. It's about police brutality and quality of life for African Americans in America. So I'm glad he straightened him out on that, and I know he got an awful lot of backlash and probably will continue to get a lot of backlash for his initial statement.
Yeah, certainly. Fred Mitchell, legendary sports writer and columnist here in the Chicagoland area, retired now. That was a great. He's joining us on our TR60 hotline, the Rewind Sports 60 WCPT 820 AM. That's what I wanted to obviously we wanted to get to, was the comments that Drew Brees made. And, the unfortunate thing for him was the fact that he said it on the mic as opposed to, and this, covering, a multitude of sports throughout your illustrious career, that a lot of players, when you're in the locker room and they'll say something maybe in the heat of the moment or whatever, and, you're writing it down or what have you, and they come back and read it in the paper the next day or two and they say, hey, wait a minute, that's not what I said, and it was taken out of context. For Drew, there's no way that he could have, even defended his comments and say, hey, well, and what I was surprised about was that he made this statement days after the riots and the protests were taking place. And to me, he had enough time to, like all of us, to think things through. And he's a professional enough that he's handled the media in his career that he understands that, wait a minute, I got to give this some thought, before I put my statement out there. Mm-hmm. And he still went on ahead and put the statement out there. Do you think, he damaged himself one way or the other, but do you think after he made the comments and the statement that he should have just stuck by his guns? Or, because a lot of people say, hey, man, if you said it, that's who you are. And no need for you to, backtrack. I think Charles Barkley said, hey, you don't have to backtrack or whatever. If you're going to stick to your guns, you said it, stick to it. Do you think he should have just stuck to what he said and say, hey, that's just how I feel?
Well, I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt right now. And I always say actions speak louder than words. And he's, sort of pledged a commitment now to focus on this issue. He obviously has many black teammates and receivers and people he counts on, as a quarterback. So I know that he was contacted by some of his black teammates after the statement was made, the initial statement was made, and they tried to educate him about the fact that this kneeling is not about the military, and it's not about the flag. It's about police brutality, and it's hard. I agree. It's hard to believe that he hadn't given this some thought in the past, but it's a narrative that we have seen and heard perpetuated ever since Colin Kaepernick decided to kneel in protest of police brutality of minorities, and how the narrative has been shifted to say, oh, he's disrespecting the flag, and my father and grandfather, whatever, was in the military, and that's not the proper narrative. And the thing, when I hear that too about the military, my father served in World War II at a time when the military was segregated. So he was in the Navy, but he was an all black unit. So we have no less pride in the fact that our ancestors served in the military, albeit segregated, and came back to American soil, and faced even more discrimination and segregation in America. So it's a false narrative, and hopefully, some people will never have their minds changed. They have their biases and beliefs that they want to believe in, no matter how much you say to them. But I think it's going to take more of the white players like Drew Brees and Aaron Rodgers and others to speak up in support, even though they have not experienced this type of discrimination themselves, just out of education and conversation with their African-American teammates, to learn more about it, to think more about it, and be supportive of this. I think that's what it's going to take to sway public opinion, at least a little bit.
Yeah, it was one thing for Drew to apologize one time, but Drew apologized twice, and then his wife apologized too. And I'm like, Drew, and I was so glad he said his statement, because I feel like it brought more light to the reason why we going through this anyway. This is not about the flag. You know what I mean? The whole time it's been about, even when I was playing, everybody thought it was about the media made it seem like it's about the flag, right? But it's not about it's about the the human lives, man, the injustice. You know what I'm saying? So even when Drew said that statement, I think it helped everybody realize, man, look, this is really not about the flag. He tweaking, you know what I mean? It's wrong for him to say that, but it brought light to the fact that, listen, there's still folk out there who believe it's about the flag. This is not about the flag, yo.
Yeah. I think the flag was lost in the symbolism, because think about '68. Remember the athletes that were getting their awards held up their fist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So in that case, there was no symbolism. It was clear what they're saying.
But the Republicans did that on purpose.
Yeah.
They changed the narrative and made it about the flag. Like that was a tactic that they used that, people unfortunately bought into.
Mm-hmm. That's the scary thing, because I'm tired of hearing the fake news out there, and it's kind of insulting because there are a lot of hard-working journalists out there, and and Fred, you are definitely top tier, no question about it, award-winning. But there are a lot of journalists out there who are busting their tail, to get the facts straight and get the information out there for the public to consume. However you consume it, that's your individual style of way of how you consume it. But there are a lot of people, especially covering these protests, putting their lives on the line to get the news and get the accurate information out there. And what's being lost is the fact that their credibility is on the line. And it disturbs me to hear all this. Now, of course, there are some people out there putting some fake information out there, but it disturbs me to the core, Fred, that people are saying, oh, look at the fake news. Look at the mainstream media. It's fake news. It's fake news. Until you have walked in that man's or that woman's shoes, it's easy to sit on the sideline and project that. But it really offends me to hear everyone, starting with the commander-in-chief, the man leading this country, to say there's a bunch of fake news out there when he's lying left and right. And the unfortunate thing is there are a lot of people that believe him, they support him, and I'm going to use his words, there are some good people, some that I personally know and I love, but it surprises me that they buy into his propaganda and his rhetoric, and they spew it out there to try to make that the real news to get their point across.
Yeah, in my opinion, the fake news, so to speak, is what many of us grew up not being exposed to in the history books about both the treatment and the contributions of minorities in America. So that's the fake news. And the other thing that I've often said, because I've been involved in education as a teacher, professor, and coach, is that we have Black History Month in February, and time again, that month is basically observed only in diverse schools, and the people who really need, in addition to that, need the education of what African Americans have experienced are in maybe predominantly white schools. These are the people who need to be educated. So you don't have adults in their 30s and 40s and 50s who are not aware, have never heard of the trials and tribulations that African Americans have gone through for decades and decades and decades and decades. That's what it's about. It's about education, and I've always felt that prejudice and discrimination is based on ignorance of the facts. So prejudice just means prejudging somebody, and if you don't take the time to get to know people and to hear their stories, then you're going to have preconceived notions about them. It's one of the great things about sports is that when you're on a team and you have a diversity of individuals, different backgrounds, and you hopefully get to know people, you get to trust people, you get to see how they react under pressure. All of these things on a day-to-day basis that happen that perhaps and probably would not happen in a neighborhood if you're living in segregated parts of the city, of the country, and you have no other reason to interact. Then that's how misinformation happens and prejudices are formed, because you don't really know about these people, and you tend to paint with a broad brush
Well, it's also like we're just humans too, man. Like it's just like some people just evil like that. You can know all you want about history and everything, man. If you just hate black people, you just hate black people. Like it's not like a educational
thing. A lot of us, yeah, a lot of
like
how you brought up.
Evil out there, man.
And yeah, now you're what your parents have taught you, and it's hard to I would imagine to break those stereotypes.
To unlearn those things, yeah, right.
Yeah, it is certainly so. I can remember when I was in high school over on the south side of St. Rita, and a U.S. history book. It was almost thick like you remember the phone books. Remember those big phone books they used to have?
Yeah.
The U.S. history book was almost that thick, right?
Yeah.
I swear to you, there wasn't even a chapter. It wasn't even a page.
Right.
It was a half a page on, I don't even want to know if she's called it Black History.
Right.
But it was just half a page in this thick history book about black people in this country. They had a picture in there. Do you know what the picture was that they had in this U.S. history book that they were teaching all of the kids at I'm sure, not only at St. Rita, but many of the Catholic high schools around at least the South Side? It was one picture they had in there. Fred, are you sitting down?
Amos and Andy?
Yeah.
It was cotton.
No. It's not, and it's not even funny. It was a picture of a lynching.
Yeah.
Oh,
with three black men hanging from a tree.
Wow.
And that was in our U.S. history book. And I couldn't believe it. Listen, I ran cross country and track over at St. Rita. We used to run at Marquette Park. You remember Marquette Park when it was before it was the way it is now? It was lily white, and I was literally one of the only black individuals allowed to go to the park. Do you know that the Nazi headquarters was over there on 69th Street?
Wow.
And we had to run by it.
Oh boy.
We had the Nazi headquarters, man, and we're talking about the 70s.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. So when you talk about that, I don't call people evil. I say people do evil things.
Right.
But I don't call people evil. But when you talk about generational racism, that was right there at the core of these young kids in those areas learning from their parents to think that black people or people who weren't like them or looked like them were bad. And that's, in my opinion, what we're seeing today. Hey, Fred, we appreciate your time, and thank you so very much for going commercial free. But would you like to take a couple calls before we spring you, my good friend? We got some people on the line that love to say hello to you.
Sure, that'd be great.
Thank you so much for your precious time. I appreciate you spending it. Let's go to the South Elgin area. Jim is on our hotline. Jim, what's up, man? How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Thanks for your patience, man.
Well, that's right. I'm enjoying a little life here in free southern Wisconsin where people go to bars and restaurants, unlike Illinois that's still being bottled up here. But anyways, I was reading about an article today about some monuments that were vandalized out in the state of Massachusetts. And one of them was called the 54th Regiment or something dedicated to black soldiers at that time. And these stupid asses, pardon my French, vandalized. So this shows you the ignorance of how these people are. They don't know history. They're just willy-nilly destroying things without regard to the dedication and memory of what something might have been for.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. It's all this destruction and looting, and I don't think any reasonable people.
All I'm going to do is
condone it.
just understand that this is a march towards communism, and it's got to be steps. Because a lot of the stuff is not about Black Lives Matter. It's about trying to promote socialism and an agenda that is not good for anybody. And so I think a lot of people are going to wake up to this. Just like in a lot of states that didn't shut down versus states that did, people have more empowerment, more money, and you see the health stats won't be any worse or might even be better. As a matter of fact, now they're letting all these people not socially mingle, socially be distant, so they can be protesting. So this whole thing from the beginning has been a big ruse, in my opinion.
We're protesting for injustice.
Thank you so much, Jim. We appreciate you, buddy.
Injustice, Jim.
Yeah, but they have
It's no manual.
Yeah, well, they have no
It's
masks.
no manual to protest in.
Fred, what do you think? What do you think? What Jim had to say?
We want justice.
I think the objective has to be unity, and
unity is good.
We've got to support one another. We're stronger together, and this divisiveness is not going to work. And we've got to learn to benefit from our diverse backgrounds and our stories. We need to listen to each other, and it's a difficult thing to do when so many black people are being oppressed, and physically, mentally, emotionally, it makes it more difficult to have a conversation. But it's got to start with that, where people have to be willing to listen. As a journalist, my favorite saying is as far as reporters are concerned, is that everyone has a story to tell.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you're rich and famous, like Michael Jordan, or whether you're the ordinary person on the street, we all have stories to tell of things we've had to overcome, issues, problems, triumphs. So we all have to be willing to listen with empathy to others' stories. And, what did you have to overcome? What are some of your successes and failures?
Yeah,
it's got to start with that. Otherwise, we're just going to keep going back and forth the way we have been in this country.
Yeah, that's the scary thing. When all of this unfolded, with the protests and the rioting and the looting and everyone, coming to the forefront, it's interesting. Personally, for me, the stories that resurfaced and the negative and the racism experiences that I've encountered, in this world and in this city, I didn't know I'd gone through so much until I started to rethink and recollect and go, wow, man, I went through this, I went through that, and it's over. It's over. I'm 57 years of age, and even when I was a little guy, I can remember certain situations occurring, but I didn't think about them until now. It's resurfaced, and I'm like, wow. Hey, Fred, I might have to sit down with you and write my book, because I got a lot of stories to tell. Believe me.
I bet.
Hey, one more.
We all do.
Yeah, one more call. Roosevelt calling from Midway. Hey, Roosevelt, welcome to the Rewind Sports 60 on WCPT. What's on your mind, man?
Gentlemen, I wanted to add on and pile on Trump. Do you guys remember when he said fire the SOBs? Twice he said that.
Yeah.
Trump pressured the owners of the NFL to not give Kaepernick, this is my opinion, not give Kaepernick a job. That's my opinion. He added fuel to the fire.
Absolutely.
Tell me I'm wrong, gentlemen.
Hey,
and the lady is here
thank
too.
You. And the young lady is here too. Roosevelt, thank you. We'll listen for your comment.
You definitely got a point.
Can I say something? Can I say one more thing?
Yeah, real quick.
Real quick. Walter Payton's daughter, I don't know if you saw it, New York Post or New York Times, I don't remember. I read it 2 days ago. She was at a drive-thru at a Walgreens. A white male got out of his car, went into his trunk, pulled out a watermelon, and came up to her driver's window and started making noises like a monkey. The lady was terrified. I don't know if you've seen, she personally posted a video how upset she was.
Yeah, I saw that.
I saw it too.
Yeah.
So I wanted you guys to talk about that. And here's my final question. Where is the coach that the city loves and adores? Where's his opinion? He's always opinionated about everything else. Where's the coach?
Ditka?
Hey,
thank you.
Good question. Thanks, Roosevelt. Appreciate your call. Fred, would you like to comment?
Yeah, I saw the unfortunate incident involving Brittany Payton as well. Like you said, Jerry, earlier, every that person has usually several stories to recall in their lifetime. I certainly do. I was talking to my wife about this the other day, and how you tend to repress a lot of things that happen just to carry on. Because if you obsess on each individual one, you wouldn't get anywhere in life. But there's so many incidents that have happened that you never forget, and yet you just try to repress them so that you won't become paralyzed in your life to move on.
Yeah, and that's the phrase that's being pounded and echoing throughout, again, not just the city and the country, but around the world, where, and I love this, Fred, and I'm sure you appreciate it as well, that the young folks, the younger generation, has picked up the baton finally, and they're saying enough is enough. Yep. Enough is enough.
That's awesome.
And it's unfortunate, in my opinion, and I'm sorry that happened with, to Brittany Payton. But white, and I say this, it's the white middle age man in decision-making positions and with power who needs to be changed and make a change. And that's going to be very, very difficult. And unfortunately, I ran into some white gentlemen yesterday at Arlington Heights at a protest that was fantastic, put on by some young ladies. But there were two white gentlemen out there, middle-aged, and they were, pushing back. And of course, before we said goodbye, they said Trump 2020. So we can't, the unfortunate thing is, Fred, we can't expect because look, whatever power you may have and however you use it, you're not just going to simply just lay over and lay down and say, okay, come on in here and take over because, supposedly I've been wrong. Right. That's not going to happen. And unfortunately, I don't know if you saw the situation that happened in Indiana, maybe outside of Indianapolis, where there were protesters marching and there were a line of white people with guns.
Yeah.
Lined up. Yeah. I mean, so the white people aren't going to just sit back and say, hey, okay, you're right. We've been kicking your ass for 400 years. Take another 400 years. That's not going to happen. No. They're not going to just sit back. And it's an unfortunate situation. And excuse my language, but I mean, it gets to the point, like I said, this generation has taken over and said enough is enough. And the frustration level has certainly reached its heights. Hey, listen, Fred, they said Michael Jordan, when he comes out and make a statement, you know something is wrong, right?
That's right. That's right. Yeah, he's been able to steer clear of many political and social issue statements in the past, but what's happened is more than egregious when it comes to the police brutality that we've witnessed with our own eyes here.
Yeah.
So I'm glad he's making a statement, and more prominent athletes of both races, all races, should step up and say something.
They certainly should. Real quick before we let you go, and we appreciate your precious time. Yeah, Walter Payton, remember he was going for the ownership for the I think it was the St. Louis Rams back in the time, right? And the greatest of all time, they shut him out. Mm-hmm. They shut Walter Payton out from becoming an owner of a National Football League team. And many of us felt that was racism. I remember a story, and you tell me if you've heard this and if it's correct, but Walter Payton said he was invited to a business dinner by one of his business partners. He arrived late. They were having cocktails. He walked through the door. He heard somebody whisper, "Who is that N? What is that N doing here?" And his buddy, he was there, said, "Hey, that's Walter Payton." The guy that made the statement that called him an N-word immediately changed his demeanor and rushed over and said, "Hey, Walter, hey, how you doing? Welcome." Walter said he heard it. Right. He turned around and walked out.
Yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't surprise me, unfortunately. I know it broke his heart to not be able to become an owner of the NFL franchise there. I was one of his main objectives once he left the playing field. So that was very hurtful to him.
Yeah, he was very devastated by that. Fred, it's always a pleasure, and obviously it will not be a last time, but keep up the great work you're doing over at DePaul and all the great work you're doing with the young folks. It's the fastest hour in sports conversation, Fred Mitchell. Thank you so very much, and we'll talk to you.
Thanks, Fred.
Thank you, Fred.
My
Thank you,
pleasure,
Fred.
Jerry. Thanks for all your good talking to you. Thank you.
Take care. Fred Mitchell, retired legendary sports writer and columnist, longtime to Chicago Tribune here in the best city in the world. It's Jerry Riles, the Rewind Sports 60. We got to say goodbye. Gabe Salgado is on hiatus. He had a surgery, so he'll be back. He'll be gone for a few weeks, but we'll be talking with him. Lauren, you're the best. Lauren Cox, marvelous one. Dan Marver.
That's so much to say today, too.
And the 17th letter of the alphabet, Q. Quentin Demps.
I did.
Good to see you guys. If you missed any portion of the broadcast, check us out on the RewindSports60.com, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Periscope. It's right there for you.
No justice,
fastest hour
no
in sports
peace.
conversation. It's the Rewind Sports 60. Be safe. Be safe. Take care, everyone. Be well. Take care.
The RewindSports60.com. The RewindSports60.com. Relax, reset, rejuvenate. Go to our link right now to restart your life. The RewindSports60.com. What are you waiting for? Hope to see you soon. The Rewind Sports 60.
Take me out to the ball game, Hall of Famer Andre Dawson.
All right. Let's hear it from the greatest fans ever. On three. 1, 2, 3. Take me out to the ball game. Take me out to the crowd. Buy me some peanuts and Cracker Jacks. I don't care if I ever get back for its root. Root for the Cubbies. If they don't win, it's a shame. For it's 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out at the old ball game. Hey, let's get some runs. Thank you.